Thank you, everyone, for being here today to join Europa editions, Grove Atlantic, and Milkweed editions to hear a little bit about our fall list. And we have highlighted three of our authors from each of our houses. Each one will talk for 2 hours and 20 minutes. You will be tested on this afterwards. But we're thrilled that you guys are here. Want to let you know, throw up anything in the chat that you would like. We are recording this. There is also a link where you can request galleys. And so feel free to jump into that. But we are thrilled to have you all here today, a day before summer solstice. So I believe we're going to kick it off. Michael, Elizabeth, do you have anything to say?
I just want to explain. I'm in my 15-year-old daughter's room, and I've just noticed that Cyndi Lauper is dancing on my head there. I too am a fan of Cyndi Lauper. Yeah, don't get me wrong. But I was planning to be in the office today. Things didn't work out. Here I am in the daughter's room, and I've also made another horrible discovery. She's reading an NYRB classics book. Like what? That's a terrible betrayal.
You've
That's
raised
how
her
I'm
well.
taking it. Yeah, we'll see. It's great to see everyone. It's great to be here. Thank you, Craig, and everyone. Shannon from Milkweed as well for pulling this together. It's a pleasure.
And I wish I could see you all. I wish I could, but I'm so thrilled to look at the list and see how many of you are here, good old friends and new ones. And I am in the office, our new Grove offices. We just moved right next door. So I'm in my new shared office with Judy Hottinson, but who couldn't be here today. So I'm kind of filling in for her, happily so. And yeah, can't wait to talk to you all after this or something. Shall we just launch right in?
Yep, and you're up first, Elizabeth.
Up first. So I am so incredibly proud to introduce our first author today. I'm exceptionally grateful to her because she is in the middle of teaching a class right now. As you can see, she's in a university setting, but even more so because today is her birthday. So happy birthday, Jamie. Thrilled for you and thanks for being here. Jamie and I have worked together joyously, intensively for over 10 years now. We actually met where she is right now in Sewanee, Tennessee, at a cafe there. So this is particularly great for me to think of her there. Grove started with I Want to Show You More, which you'll all remember, this extraordinary jacket and this debut collection of stories, which got the triumvirate of reviews from James Wood and Dwight Garner and the New York Times Book Review. Spectacular collection of stories, which Jamie then followed up with Fire Sermon, which was an Indie Next pick and a New York Times Editor's Choice. But now, she has written what I and many others, including Lauren Groff, who's going to say it right on our jacket, is, I believe, her best book yet. So completely thrilled. And Jamie Quattro is here to tell you herself about Two Step Devil. We're publishing on September 10th. Thank you, Jamie. Take it away.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for letting me speak to you all about Two Step Devil in the middle of my class on my birthday. I just feel like the planets have aligned to be here in this space where Elizabeth and I first met, and actually where I started conceiving of the idea for this novel. But briefly, what it's about is set in 2014, and we're in Lookout Mountain, Alabama, kind of in the backwoods, and we meet the character of the Prophet. He is an old man living off the grid who paints his visions. He's an outsider artist. And one day he is scrounging for materials at the local junkyard and sees a Mercedes pull up to an abandoned gas station across an access road. And he sees a young girl in the backseat of the car. And when she lifts her hands to what he thinks is going to be pushing her hair behind her ears, he sees there are zip ties on her wrists. And he realizes that she is a victim of sex trafficking, and also realizes that, or believes that she is an angel sent from God to take his visions to the White House, because he is dying. So he concocts this kind of grand plan to rescue her, and we're off and running with the novel. But I think what I want to tell you about is the genesis of this book. I live on Lookout Mountain and was teaching my daughter to drive. This is about 13 years ago now. And it's windy roads, and it's not a good place to teach a child to drive. But if you get out the back, it's straight roads. And so I said, let's go out back. You can get up some speed. We got lost, ended up in the woods, and I saw this man in a shack selling pumpkins. And I could have never known that that would begin a friendship that would last 13 years. And that I would end up basing the character of the prophet on my friend Ralph. And I immediately recognized a milieu and a location and a place that was seminal to the South and to Southern literature. I wanted to inhabit and explore and interrogate this space and his world. The story that came from this relationship has nothing to do with his actual life. He's just the character inspiration, but the story is really one of it's almost a love story in a grandfather-granddaughter caretaking way. The ways that they try to rescue one another from the suffering, and then the sort of ways their lives are pulling them apart. It is also funny. I know that sounds so dark, but I keep getting feedback from writer friends saying, I laughed through the whole thing, which makes me feel like I've achieved something, because I do think when you go to those really dark places, you need to contrast it with some levity and with some light. There's a third character in the novel. There's the prophet, the girl, and then there's also a devil figure who also kind of blows open the story and brings a cosmic perspective onto the story of these two marginal figures. And the last thing I'll say is that this is not a COVID novel in any way, set in 2014, but I did write the bulk of it and finish it during that time of isolation and loneliness of COVID. And really in that time of being acutely aware of the need for human communication and love and connection, and just appreciating it in new ways, I think that tension and that recognition is what really infused this novel with what I hope is the importance of love and human communication and connection. So thank you all. Two-Step Devil, I hope you love it. I really love it. I do feel it's the book I was born to write. And I'll just say that today because it's my birthday. Thanks.
Thank you, Jamie. Fantastic. Thank you for being here. Go back to your class. See you later.
I think it's over to you, Autumn, at this juncture. Autumn and Shannon.
All right. I am absolutely thrilled to introduce Shannon Bowering, whom I first worked with on her debut novel, The Road to Dalton, which is, as many of you probably know who have read it, just this luminous portrait of a small town in northern Maine. So Shannon, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us today about your follow-up to The Road to Dalton, Where the Forest Meets the River. I know some authors can really struggle with their sophomore follow-ups, but I have to say that I think this is even better than your first book, which was already such a masterful story. So I think everybody here is going to be really excited to hear about it. We open on a community that's been reshaped in a lot of ways by the death of a young mother that was 5 years earlier. And you said to me that it was really important to you to write a sequel that also works as a standalone. So tell me a bit about how you've accomplished that in Forest.
Yeah, so what I tried to do in Where the Forest Meets the River is just kind of give enough background of each character's trajectory in the first book that readers new to the second book wouldn't feel lost. They have enough information to understand that we're going into a community where things have already happened, but they would still feel very welcome there. So I kind of want to create this Dalton universe where you can jump in at any time and you still feel welcome and you still feel like you have a pretty good understanding of what's gone before. the book that you're currently reading.
And I think
And
you've done a really good job of that without
thank
like
you.
over embellishing it the way it can be
Yeah,
done. And you
it's
brought a
hard
lot of
to.
new characters in too, which is exciting. I know Vera Curtis, I think, is one of my favorites that I'm excited for people to meet.
Yeah. So Vera
Um,
Curtis is she left Dalton when she was 18 and she's coming back as a 35-year-old and kind of realizing maybe she wants to be back in her hometown, which she did not want to be part of. Um, and we also have a couple new characters in the form of Annette Fraser. She's the mother of the woman who died in the first book. And even though she's not super likable, I feel like it was good to see her story and kind of see the different ways that grief can manifest itself. And even though he's not a new character in Where the Forest Meets the River, we get to go back with Greg Fortin, who was he started as a side character in the first book, and I love him so much that I just wanted to spend as much time with him as I could. So I really wrote a lot from his perspective in the second book. He's going back to his hometown after his first year at college, and things are changing a little bit for him. He's dealing with the expectations of his family and coming to terms with his own sexual identity. And I'm really excited that readers will get to jump back in on his journey with him.
I love Greg. I'm so glad we get to see so much more of him in this book. The thing I really love about it is that so many of the characters in this book are people that I recognize and I grew up with probably in my own hometown, which, like Vera, I literally just moved back to about 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
So it's very, very close to me in that way. I'm very excited for people to meet her and to see Greg change and all of these characters that you brought into the first book to really to grow with them.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Annette, who's going through a lot after losing her daughter Bridget in the first book. So like its predecessor, Forest, it really tackles a lot of issues like the difficulty of single parenthood, grief, many forms of loss, suicide. But ultimately, it's got such an uplifting undercurrent that feels really honest instead of trite, which I think is a harder thing to do than most people think when it comes to writing. So what do you think is the main source of that?
I wish I had a really great answer. All I can say is I feel like what feels honest to me is the character's own trajectory. So I'm hoping that like their individual capacity for resilience is kind of what balances out all the difficult things they're dealing with. And also the love that we see between characters, whether it's familial or romantic or friendship. I think that is also a really good balance between the difficult stuff.
Yeah.
And it just, for me, that was really necessary in this book. And also the first book is bad things happen, but you also kind of look for those moments of light and love, and hopefully that'll carry you through. So hopefully maybe that's what happened in this book, although some of it I think was just some sort of magical alchemy.
Well, I think one of your blurbs that we got for this one, they called it such a beautiful portrait of many different kinds of love. And I think that's what it is ultimately at its heart. And you've really drawn that out in such a beautiful way. I'm really excited for your fans of the first book to get to see this and for new people to come in and be introduced to Dalton, because I don't think they're going to want to leave.
Yeah.
So, lightning round. Who would you say Forest is for fans of?
Okay, jump in if I forget any. Frederick Bachman, Elizabeth Strout, Lily King, Ann Patchett, Lynn Staker Strong, Margot Livesey, Ann Tyler. Who else?
I think that's pretty great.
Okay.
All right.
I hope people love it. I love it. I'm excited for everybody to go back to Dalton with me. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Shannon. Thanks so much for sharing your time with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all. Milkweed is up, and I will say it's an honor for me to introduce Chris Latre, a former independent bookseller at Fact and Fiction, currently Montana's Poet Laureate, a winner of the Montana Book Award. And when you spend time on the road like I did with Chris, you also find out he's a member of KISS Army, I believe member number 666. And between the two of us, we can change out a dead car battery within what, Chris, 10 minutes? That's what we
Yeah,
learned on the road. So,
including drive
but
time.
exactly. But today I am thrilled for him to be the author of Becoming Little Shell, A Landless Indian's Journey Home, which Milkweed will be publishing on August 20th. It's exciting to see all the glowing reviews that have rolled in, including the starred review in Kirkus, the praise from writers like Peter Stark, Robin Wall Kimmerer, Daniel Truer. But I love the outpouring of support now that's coming in from the indie book selling community. You can see all their great endorsements on Edelweiss. But Calvin Crosby at the King's English summed it up beautifully when he wrote, "Absolute brilliance and completely necessary for everyone to read." This is a book that's driven by Chris's storytelling talents and tremendously engaging voice that you'll discover. Becoming Little Shell is a work that looks into the future as much as it does in the past, beautifully honoring all who helped him and his Little Shell community come home. Chris.
Amigwech. Buju, Indinoe Maganadug. Chris Kashin. That is hello, all of my relatives in Anishinaabe, followed by you may call me Chris in Michif, which are the two languages of my people who are the Little Shell tribe of Chippewa Indians. And we are the most recent tribe to have our federal recognition, federal restoration, as we call it now, after more than 150 years of being considered the landless Indians of Montana. So Becoming Little Shell kind of serves like it's like a double meaning title because it's how we came to be called the Little Shell tribe, how we were the landless Indians, and then also how I became a member of the Little Shell tribe after growing up in a family where my father and my grandfather both denied their indigenous heritage, and kind of the weird juxtaposition of my identity because grandma said we were Chippewa, and if grandma's the boss, then she's right, and it didn't really matter what dad said. So that was a curiosity that I grew up with, always identifying as Chippewa without really knowing what it means. So, you know, as I got older and became more interested in what that means, and particularly after my father passed away in 2014, I really doubled down in trying to find out where he kind of came from, and as a result, you know, also where I come from. And you know, my initial idea for the book was to be more of kind of a historical nonfiction, narrative nonfiction type thing with dates and all that kind of stuff. And Daniel Slager at Milkweed, you know, kind of urged me to make it more personal, and that kind of veered into memoir territory, which wasn't necessarily what I anticipated, but also didn't come to a surprise either. And the result, just based on what people are saying about it, is Daniel was right and I was probably wrong. But you know, it's not just the story of a bunch of Indians that nobody's heard about. It's also the story of how what happened to us is playing out around us all the time, nationally, internationally, the removal and eradication of indigenous people, the genocide of people who just want to live in the place where they've lived for generations. And how does that play out across the subsequent generations? And even like, and I know we're not unique to this, but like where I live outside of Missoula now, Missoula is really struggling with a houseless population and how to deal with that. And we for more than 100 years were that houseless population. So, you know, when I see these folks that everybody wants to kind of shove out of sight, out of mind, I'm seeing play out all over again how we were treated. And I think it's important for us to not slide those things into the shadows, but to take them on head on and recognize that most of the things that we see as problems are really symptoms of a larger problem. And the story of my people, I think, is a great lens into kind of the history, not only of settler colonialism on Turtle Island, but also how that continues to play out in more subtle but equally direct ways in how we live with each other now. And the bottom line for me is over the decade plus that I was really paying attention and learning and talking to people and understanding what it means to be Anishinaabe, what it means to be Little Shell, what it means to be Métis, and who we are and who we were, and just finding this tremendous pride to still be here. And that is what I hope comes across in the book, is just the absolute gratitude I have for the sacrifices that people made to give me the opportunity to sit in a place like this and talk to people like you who do so much for communities who nobody else really wants to do anything for. So, I did my poet laureate celebration, and my book release celebration is going to be at the Missoula Public Library, which I call the People's House, because it's a place where everybody can go, whether they are, bougie wine glass holding neoliberals or people who are in the library because it's the only place they're going to be warm that day. So libraries and bookstores are kind of the bastions, the last stand in some places of values that I think are so important, and give opportunities through publishing stories and publishing books and hand selling them and recommending them and reviewing them. And it's all so important. So I'm grateful for what you do. I'm grateful to Milkweed for the opportunity for my story to reach a wider audience. And I am very hopeful that you agree when you have your opportunity to read my books. So miigwech, chi miigwech, that is thank you very much again in Anishinaabe.
Thank you so much, Chris. That was beautiful. And thank you, Shannon and Jamie and Chris, for being our featured authors here for the first portion of the program. Thank you all very much. We are going to move into our speed dating round and each of our houses will present 3 titles. Hope you can stick around. Morgan, our Milkweed publicist, is visiting family in Italy. I think it's 11 o'clock at night there, but Italy is up 1-0 in the match in minute 67. So Michael's also keeping track of the score, right, Michael?
I am, but alas, you got it round the wrong way. They're down 1-0. Spain is up.
See, this is what happens.
Yeah,
Damn.
not that I've been watching.
I'm not watching. I'm just trying to channel what's going on in Morgan's life right now. But Morgan, you're going to kick it off with 2 Milkweed titles, right?
Yeah, I am. And I was saying earlier, if you guys hear cheering behind me, it's for Italy. But we can pretend it's for me too in the pitches and these books. First of all, I just wanted to thank everyone so much for being here. This is really the thing that keeps me going as a publicist. It's just so exciting to hear people get so excited about their books, to meet authors, and of course, to be with all of you. So thank you for making the time to be here. I am so excited to talk to you about 2 of our titles that are coming out this October. The first one is The Science of Last Things. It's an essay collection by Ellen Wayland Smith. Thank you, Craig. Look at that cover. She's beautiful. And me and Craig have been calling this one our sleeper hit. And I have to say it because it's true. Each of these essays really hit in many different ways. And so it is our sleeper hit. This one is for readers of Rebecca Solnit, Maggie Nelson, Lydia Militz-Ladis, and Margaret Rankel. Through both tender and really personal recountings of experiences of our constantly shifting relationships to our body. These essays talk about Ellen's bout with cancer, death of her father, and her experiences giving birth. And in recounting each of these experiences with the relationship with her own body, she weaves in all these incredible detailed research around many subjects like deep time, which I didn't know much about, and now I've become vaguely obsessed with. So if you're interested in deep time, this is for you. The origins of the different names for different bones. And there are even pictures of an ancient botany archive in one of the essays, which I particularly loved. And through each of these essays and cumulatively, Wayland Smith gives us a guide for how to tend to ourselves and tune into the world around us. And she encourages us to really move away from an idea of wisdom that's set in fact, and instead to move towards a recommitment to the curiosity of what's unfolding, whether it's in ourselves or around us. I'm going to admit this to you all, don't tell anyone. I've actually read this twice now. And I keep returning to so many of these passages as a guide. And I'm always reminded that the most powerful thing I can do is accept and get curious about how I am just a small, soft, fragile creature. And that gives me everything I need to hold the world just as softly as it becomes more and more fragile. And so I really hope that you're able to dive into these essays and find this guide as well. Again, that's The Science of Last Things by Ellen Wayland Smith, and that's coming out the 15th of October, so soon. And then the next book I wanted to talk about is Metamorphosis. I'm so excited about this one. This one's fiction, also a gorgeous cover. Wow, look at her. She's glowing. Thank you, Craig. And this is a short story collection of speculative climate fiction, and it's by all debut new voices. And we're doing it in partnership with the leading news outlet in climate coverage, which is Grist. I'm not sure if you all have heard of it. And this one comes out the 22nd of October. I'm personally new to climate fiction. I've become vaguely obsessed with climate fiction now. I've always been a fan of short stories, so this has been like two perfect worlds colliding for me. And I think the thing that I fell in love with the most about this collection is just how wide-ranging and imaginative it is, and just how many voices are encapsulated in this. We go from a love story between two beekeepers who are training bees to find and notify humans of flood warnings. And then we go to a satyr for a bioengineer of mammoths who's like helping to revive mammoths. And the satyr goes incredibly badly for many reasons. I won't tell you if it's family related or mammoth related, you'll have to find out. And then there's another story about a collective tea farm that is in crisis. They're grappling with their colonial history of the land. They're also maybe in debt to a bunch of robots. I'll let you find that one out as well. Omar El-Akkad calls these stories radical reimaginings. Sequoia Nagamuso adds that they're crucial, imaginative, heartbreaking, and hopeful all at once. I couldn't agree more. It's going to take so much imagination, collaboration, and openness to newness for us to face climate crisis. And this anthology perfectly embodies that spirit. And I hope you take a look. And again, that's Metamorphosis, and it's out October 22nd. And I'm going to pass it back over to Craig for our last speed dating title.
Thanks, Morgan. That was wonderful. One more title to share with you guys. North American Odyssey, 12,000 miles across the continent by kayak, canoe, and dog sled by Amy and Dave Freeman. This is armchair travel reading at its best, a work that's going to certainly appeal to readers of Cheryl Stray, Kevin Fedarko, Heather Anderson's Thirst, even Rainer Wynn's The Salt Path. Our authors, Amy and Dave Freeman, are they going to spend their honeymoon at Bar Harbor in a Victorian inn bed and breakfast, surrounded by precious moment figurines and needlepoint and cats? Hell no. They are going to kick off their honeymoon traveling 12,000 miles across the continent. This is an expedition that would make a Jack London novel look like water aerobics at a senior center in Boca. From the Pacific Northwest where they launch, going through the Yukon Territory. And we're not just talking dog sled, there's skiing, there's snowshoeing, there's hiking. But they work their way from the Yukon Territory to the Great Lakes, all the way down to the eastern seaboard, ultimately ending up at the most southern point in the continental United States in Florida. While this is sort of white knuckle armchair travel, there's a deeper sense of purpose with their experience, and that is to really dial in on what is happening to the natural communities and the people that live within those communities in terms of climate change, in terms of their resources being polluted by corporations and industries, and about environmental and they really immerse themselves in the community, and you really get a sense of purpose and ultimately their love for being in the natural world. So it's multi-layered, wonderful, wonderful storytelling, and just sort of gripping at the same time. There will be full color photography throughout. So it's a very tactile, engaging experience as you travel along with them from west to east. North American Odyssey, we will publish that in hardcover on October 1st. So, and now turning it over to Europa.
Hello, hello. This is Christy Bontrager. I'm the publicist at Europa and also thrilled to be here with you. And like many of you, I think of my job as I take a book and I find its perfect reader. So I'm excited for you guys to learn about some of our new books. And let me introduce my colleague, Kathy Weiss, who I'm sure you guys have all met before. Kathy is our Director of Sales and Marketing, and she's going to start us off.
Hey everyone, I get to tell you about the Axeman's Carnival. Catherine Chigday is an award-winning writer from New Zealand. Among her many accolades, she has won New Zealand's top literary prize twice, and most recently it was for the Axeman Carnival. We really want to build on the success we had last year when we published her novel, Pet. Pet was named a Best Book of the Year by the Washington Post, the New Yorker, Slate, Crime Reads, and Good Housekeeping, and it was a New York Times editor's choice. The Axeman's Carnival takes place in New Zealand on a farm that's on the brink of going broke, a farm that has an empty nursery in the house. There is tension between Marnie and her husband, Rob, a tension which sometimes erupts into violence. And the friction between them becomes even worse when Marnie rescues a magpie as a chick. And the magpie, Tama, is our narrator. Tama is charming and precocious and able to speak. Tama is part surrogate child, part witness, and part trickster. But he is not just watchful. He is a key player in the action. And he not only gives us a bird's eye view of the human world, but also of the natural world. The novel crosses back and forth between the human world and the magpie world. The Axeman Carnival of the title is an annual event, and Rob has won it the last 9 years. And for him, he feels the whole future of the farm hinges on him winning it again. For Marnie, the carnival offers a hope of harmony at home if he can win it. I have to say, the Axeman Carnival, it's a lot of things. It's much more than a domestic drama. It's also a portrait of a place and a community. And it's also a look at society. It explores the role of social media and influencers in our society. Marnie starts to post pictures and stories of Tama on social media, and he becomes this huge internet sensation. And that part of the storyline, it not only drives the narrative, but it factors into the dramatic conclusion of the novel. There is a tension which hovers over this story from the very beginning. And I have to say, one of the things Chigday does such a great job of doing is balancing the tension and the violence with humor. The story constantly shifts back and forth. And Tama actually provides us with a lot of our humor, both intentionally and unintentionally. Anyway, we are publishing it in August, and I hope you'll give it a read.
Yeah. Hello, it's me again. And back to so now I'm going to where's everyone? I was going to say, now for a man who needs no introduction, you know him, you love him, editor-in-chief of Europa, Michael Reynolds.
Hey, listen, you guys, I was a bit worried about my connection, so I've decided to embrace the teenage football fans here. Say hello. Hi. Hi. Here we are. It's all going to work out. Don't you worry. I also wanted to say, Craig, I think we forgot to mention a couple of times that we're running ahead of time, so maybe I have time to mention this, but all three publishers here are of course sold and distributed by PGW. That you booksellers know and love as well, your PGW reps, I think as a testament to sort of how committed PGW is to our books and our programs. Just take a look through the attendee list on this meeting. We've got a bunch of PGW people here, so thanks for coming, PGW people, and much appreciated. And I think we should also mention Kelly Justice from Fountain Books, who sort of first brought us together, Craig and me together, for her fantastic Jabbies series, bringing publishers in to talk to the public readers. What a crazy idea. And I think that that meeting, Craig, maybe was sort of the seed for what we're doing today. So good to thanks for coming, Kelly, and we appreciate everything that you do at Fountain Books. On to Fathers and Fugitives. So there are a couple of reasons for us to be really excited in-house about this book. First of all, it's the first book that we have published translated from the Afrikaans. And for a publisher like Europa to bring a new language to our list is, something very, very exciting for us. Secondly, this book came to us through the good offices of our dear author, Damon Galga, the winner of the Booker Prize a few years ago, who basically came to us and said, there's been a mistake. I'm not the best living South African writer. This guy is S.J. Naude. You should take a look. We did. We fell in love with the book. It's extraordinary. But what are the reasons for you to be excited? Well, Fathers and Fugitives tells the story of Daniel. Daniel's a young gay man from South Africa. He lives in London. And he leads a comfortable life, but one I think that's sort of devoid of real deep connections. And when his father's health declines, he returns to South Africa to take care of his father, and discovers once he's there that there's this weird, peculiar clause in the father's will saying, you have to spend time, if you want the money, you have to spend time with this cousin, Theon. Daniel hasn't seen Theon for decades, since they were kids, and Theon lives in an old farm in the Free State in South Africa. Daniel discovers that Theon's life his situation is extremely complicated, and those complications are going to change Daniel's life completely, and also change the sort of tone of the book. Daniel, when the book opens, I think he's a character that's sort of in search of a moral compass. Yeah. And I think the tension in this book is he going to find it? Is the book going to end with him having found his moral bearings, having found his sense of belonging, having created maybe this new idea of family and what family is? I think Daniel, there are times, especially in the beginning of the book, Daniel reminds me a lot of Thomas Ripley. Yeah, the Patricia Highsmith, fantastic Patricia Highsmith character, especially in this sort of this lack of a moral compass, maybe, but also this unreliability of his narration. And I think this book is in many ways a super potent and poignant blend of Patricia Highsmith and Coetzee, with this high-minded drama, South African drama. So much happens in this short book. It's a little over 200 pages, but we're all over the map, all over the world. There's a lot of drama, some great writing, some memorable characters. The New Yorker is looking at it for an excerpt. Bomb Magazine is doing an interview with Naude that's going to be conducted by Neil Mukherjee. These guys are getting out of control behind me now. So I better sign off with that. I hope you'll take a look at it. Fathers and Fugitives by S.J. Naude. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I was expecting a giant cheer from the background. Well,
they're in their own world back there.
They're in their own world.
Yeah.
And our last guest is our own in-house Italian, Eduardo Enrioni. He is our nonfiction editor, and he's going to talk to you about our final book today.
Hi everyone. I was also hoping that Easley would score, while Michael was speaking, so we could see the reaction live from his house. But alas, it's not looking good. But there's still hope, maybe, which is also the theme of my book. So, not related to soccer though. I'm gonna be talking to you about The Bishop's Villa by Sasha Naspini, which is translated from the Italian by Clarissa Botsford, and we're publishing hardcover on November 19th. And it's a historical novel set in Tuscany during World War II. We published Naspini's previous novel in 2021, Nives, which I have here. Some of you might remember that pet chicken plays a central role in the story. And Nives sold out of its first print run after a rave review by Maureen Corrigan on NPR, in which she compared the writing to Edith Wharton's, and she praised the way in which emotions, whiplash, and the most unexpected of secrets and epiphanies emerge. And she might as well be talking about The Bishop's Villa, which shares many of the qualities that have made Nives a success. A sharp, vivid narrative voice, an evocative setting in the Tuscan countryside, and especially, I think, the focus on a small community and on characters who seem to live at the margins of society, but then are pushed by history, by external forces to the center of the stage. The story is inspired by true events and takes place in the winter of 1943 in a small village called Le Case. Italy has surrendered to the Allies a few months before, and most of the country's territory has been occupied by the Nazis, who are rounding up and imprisoning Jews to deport them to concentration camps in Eastern Europe. And in what was a unique case in Italy, the local bishop in southern Tuscany struck a deal with the Nazis to allow them to use his summer residence, the villa of the title, as a temporary holding place for Jews on their way to the camps. The book follows the story of René, who's the village shoemaker, is 50 years old, a shy man who has always led a very quiet, solitary life. He has one sole friend, Anna, a woman to whom he's never been able to declare his deep love. And he's shocked one day, René, when Anna suddenly leaves. She disappears into thin air to join the growing anti-fascist resistance movement. This departure is a turning point for René's life as well. After a lifetime of avoiding difficult decisions, he decides that it's time to act and fight for what he loves and for what is truly important. So it's a moving story of love, of resistance, of redemption. I think it's a story about ordinary people touched by war, and how even the most unlikely, smallest of characters of people can rise up to fight against evil, against tyranny. It will appeal to readers of similar World War II novels like My Father's House by Joseph O'Connor, which he just published in paperback, or The Postcard by Amber Est, also just came out in paperback in May. I think this book shares with those books an emphasis on how tragic and especially pervasive war was. It touched every single person in Europe, no matter how small the community that they live in was. But also it shared with those books a sort of like hopefulness. There's something about resilience and hope that is central to these stories.
Thank you so much, Eduardo. We will turn it over.
I believe Grove is up next. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Elizabeth Schmitz. I don't think I introduced myself before, but I'm the editorial director of Grove, and I'm going to be telling you about 3 books. Just me up here today, I'm afraid, but all but the last book are books that I edited, so it makes some sense. So the first book I'm going to talk about is a nonfiction book, and it's Recognizing the Stranger by Isabella Hamad. I am really, really pleased and proud to be publishing Bella Hamad's first work of nonfiction. Bella is the author, as most of you or some of you know, of The Parisian, which won the Sue Kaufman Prize here when we published it, and the Palestine Book Award, a Betty Trask Award, and many others. She then wrote Enter Ghost, which we published about 1.5 years ago. It was won the Aspen Literary Prize a couple of weeks ago, and the Encore Award last night in England for the best second novel of the year. She was also shortlisted for the Women's Prize and the Ondaatje and William Saroyan. And Bella is really extraordinary. She's an amazing novelist, and it's sort of a bittersweet reality that awareness of her work has risen quite significantly over the last 8 months or so. And she, of course, considers herself a novelist first through and through, someone who absorbs and processes history, particularly Palestinian history, through her fiction. But last fall, she delivered the Edward Said Memorial Lecture at Columbia University. It was about the power and limits of narrative turning points and connecting their role in fiction to the shape of the Palestinian fight for freedom. In that lecture, which got a standing ovation and was just extraordinary, she grapples with thinkers like Aristotle and Freud and Anne Carson, James Joyce, and Maggie Nelson. And she uses texts like Oedipus Rex, Returning to Haifa, and also her own first novel, The Parisian. The lecture was astounding. It was passionate, it was enlightening, it was engaging. She, as I said, got the standing ovation. And that seminal talk was delivered 9 days before October 7th. So at that time, we thought we'd love to publish this. And what Bella did was put together this lecture that was delivered 9 days before October 7th with a companion piece that she wrote subsequently to address the current war. It's called On Gaza. So together, the two pieces act as almost kind of like a literary primer in a way to the conflict. I think it's a book for both those who know a lot about it and for people who don't and want to know more. Kirkus just reviewed it. They called it simultaneously scholarly and righteously impassioned. Bella has a range of blurbs. Rashid Khalidi, who's the New York Times bestselling author of 100-Year War in Palestine, is on the cover, but also Sally Rooney, Max Porter, Alex Chi, and Nora Erekat. PW yesterday listed it as one of the most anticipated political books of the fall. And we are just very proud and excited to have her on the list. It's short. It will be a Black Cat paperback original with flaps, and we're publishing September 24th. So that's Isabella, our nonfiction. And then the next one is really fun and so great. And I hope a lot of you know who she is. Her name is Betsy Lerner. And the book is Shred Sisters. I hope you can see it. It's a fantastic cover. And I'm so excited to be publishing Betsy. She is someone I have known for 35 years, since I was a baby scout, and loving all of her books that she was acquiring at Houghton Mifflin, particularly her really dark and literary memoirs, Elizabeth Wurtzel's Prozac Nation and Lucy Greeley's autobiography of the Face. I worshipped her. I wanted to be her. Betsy is now, having gone to Doubleday, is now a literary agent, and she represents, among others, Patti Smith, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and Temple Grandin. She herself is the author of 3 previous memoirs, which many of you might know, Fear and Loathing, Forest for the Trees, and her latest book was The Bridge Sisters. She sold a lot of copies of her memoirs, almost 200,000 copies all combined. But Shred Sisters, this one is her first novel, and I fell in love with it. It's just intoxicating and wise and moving and smart. It's the story of 2 very different sisters and who are on a hard-won path to coming of age in the decades surrounding the 70s. Amy is the younger, studious one, the cautious to the core and believer of facts and the empirical world. Her sister, Ollie, is charismatic, stunningly confident, the thrilling, seductive star of any room that she enters. And as they grow, Ollie's behavior becomes increasingly erratic and unpredictable, shattering lives of anyone close to her. So it's an intimate and bittersweet story of a sister knot, grappling with mental health issues, with work, with love and loss. She is sharp and nuanced and witty and just psychologically attuned. She's completely unafraid. Patti Smith, who had never read any of Betsy's books before, read this book absolutely loved it. She calls she says it moves like a souped up pickup truck. And I loved it. She won't let us put her blurb on the cover, only on the back, but we have 8 other blurbs for Betsy. She is just completely beloved. She's got Leah Hager Cohen, who calls it a cocktail of raw poetry, needle sharp insights, and propulsive, almost projectile honesty. And the other really fun thing about this is that Betsy, since the day I bought this book, however long ago, she promised me, she said, Elizabeth, if you buy this book and we get to work together, I promise you, I'm going to make it my business to learn about book talk. And she has been educating herself and posting. She has gone viral in a bunch of her posts with her deadpan, sardonic voiceover about her unglamorous path to becoming a writer. They are absolutely hilarious. And it will be very interesting to see if they have an impact. I'm certainly curious. We're publishing Shred Sisters on October 1st. And I hope you all love it. And what's the next one? Oh, yes. Brightly Shining. This is a Christmas book. It's Peter Blackstock's book. He bought this. It's literature and translation. It's from Norway. As you know, Grove has this tradition of publishing literature and translation. And this is our latest addition to the legacy. Peter compares it to small things like these. Yes. It also reminds me a lot of Truman Capote's A Christmas Memory. It's a very short but powerful jewel of a novel about taking place over a Christmas holiday in Norway. It's a story of 2 young girls. It's told to the point of view of a 10-year-old. And what happened, whose mother has vanished, and they're being brought up by their father, who is almost always unemployed. But he gets this job, someone notices, as for selling Christmas trees around Christmas. And for a while, these girls' life is wonderful. He goes to work, he sells Christmas trees, he comes home, his pocket's full of money, they have food and presents and all. But then one day he doesn't come back, and he hasn't disappeared, he just gets lured by the pubs and he loses his job. And so what happens is the 10-year-old, our narrator, takes over the job. And she goes before school and after school to sell Christmas trees. And it's absolutely beautiful. It's sold in 14 territories. It was a #1 paperback bestseller in Sweden, as well as, being a big seller all over Scandinavia and other countries too. We have extraordinary blurbs from Douglas Stewart, Lily King, Ann Patchett, Leif Enger, some of our authors, but not all of them. Yeah, we think that you will really love this, and it's a perfectly beautiful little package that we will publish in November 19th, 2024, to be precise. And yeah, can't wait to hear what you think. Also, Claire Massoud loved it. Says, deceptively simple, deceptively innocent, told from the perspective of a bright-eyed, too wise child. It has the power of a classic. You will read it in a single setting and carry it in your heart. So that's my speed pitching for you all. Do we get to answer any questions or anything, or that's too hard? So grateful to be here. Craig, thank you very much.
Well, it's wonderful to have 3 great independent houses all under the PGW umbrella, and to share our books and authors with all of you today. And we very much appreciate the support that you show our programs and making room on your shelves at the stores for our books and authors. So great to be able to do this with all of you today. So special thanks to the authors.
Yeah. Thank you all. Email, text, any questions, any galleys wanted, anything we can do.
Yep. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much. Bye, guys.
Take care.
Bye.